Victoria. There have been Unitarians in Victoria for over 100 years, off and on, through different guises and in different buildings. And in the 1950s, there was a psychologist or psychiatrist who had gatherings, secular religious gatherings, in his office. And that was really kind of the kickoff. This Unitarian congregation had a presence in James Bay, in the building that is now, what's the name of the restaurant? Il Covo Restaurant, which is a red brick building. That was the Unitarian church for a few dozen years. And with the arrival of a new minister named Van Knight, the congregation just exploded in size and was running 3 services, and there were 120 children in the children's program. The children's program was often run in a different building on a different part of the city because there were so many kids. The Christmas pageant and Easter pageant and all those things were apparently extraordinary. Pauline and Roger had moved from Duncan to Victoria, and a friend in Duncan said, when you get to Victoria, check out the Unitarians. And Pauline said, I'm a Roman Catholic, and if I can't be a Roman Catholic, I won't be anything. Until she learned about Cakes for the Queen of Heaven, which the Unitarians were running, and she's been a Unitarian ever since. I played you the recording of Connie Harrison, who was among the 8 people who formed Capital Congregation, and she was one of those church workers who was unstoppable and had a very clear and fixed idea of how she wanted the congregation to go. And she got her way, and we're still doing it more or less her way, which, why not, right? It's been working since March of 1996. Church work is important to me. Why is church work important to me? Recently, I learned that during the 1700s, an Anglican priest from Epworth in Lincolnshire developed a new method of worshiping the divine. John Wesley stripped away the smells and bells of high Anglicanism. Wesley traveled widely and preached outdoors. He helped form and organize small Christian groups that developed intensive and personal accountability, discipleship, and religious instruction. All volunteers, lay-led church workers. John Wesley appointed itinerant unordained evangelists, both women and men, to care for these groups of people. Under Wesley's direction, so-called Methodists became leaders in many social issues of the day, including the abolition of slavery and support for, a shock at the time, women preachers. Last month, when my brother and I traveled to Haxey, where our great-great-grandfather started as a Methodist lay preacher, we learned that our kin were essentially neighbors of John Wesley's kin. So my great-great-grandfather was a cleric, my great-grandfather was active in the church in Salmon Arm, my grandfather was the treasurer of that church, my father was the treasurer of a half-dozen United Churches. On my mother's side, my grandfather helped build and maintain the Ukrainian Orthodox church buildings near his farm and was the cantor every Sunday, even after he lost his hearing, which was a challenge for everyone. But as it was pointed out, most of the congregation had also lost their hearing. That was in the days when farm equipment didn't have guards over gears or sound abatement on exhaust and transmissions. My mom was a church worker, including congregational president, almost until the end of her life, in 2 different denominations. And me, only a few weeks after I joined the tiny Unitarian Universalist congregation in Belleville, Ontario in 1996, I was thrust into a leadership role. I have done UU church work at the congregational, university, regional, and national levels. I love doing church work, and many of my closest friends are church workers. Today we come together to reflect on something foundational about our life as a congregation, the sacredness of church work. Since Capital was formed in 1996, this community has been sustained not by a hierarchy of power, unless you knew Connie really closely, but by the deep and shared commitment of people like you, members, friends, and staff, lay leaders, pianists, childcare workers, bookkeepers, ministers, administrators, all bringing their gifts into this space, helping build something greater than the sum of its parts. But why do we call this work sacred? It's sacred because it lives out our Unitarian Universalist principles. These aren't abstract ideas, they're meant to be practiced. And when we show up to serve this community, we embody them in the most grounded and beautiful ways. Take our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. When we create a welcoming space, offer childcare, or make the sanctuary accessible, we affirm that everyone belongs here. Everyone matters. The second principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, comes alive when we share leadership, listen to each other's ideas, and support our staff with fair wages and kindness. These are not just administrative choices, they're spiritual commitments. The third principle calls for acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. Church work is not just logistics, it's ministry. Every time someone leads a discussion, plays music that moves us, or offers a word of encouragement, we are fostering spiritual growth, not just in ourselves, but in one another. And the fourth principle, our free and responsible search for truth and meaning, is lived out when we create a space for dialogue, where sermons are met with curiosity, not conformity. When we plan programs or host speakers or even arrange the order of service, we're nurturing that freedom. The fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, is one we embody uniquely in church life. Capital, like many UU congregations, is led by its people. Decisions are made not by decree, usually not by decree, but through discernment and collaboration. Every committee meeting, every vote, every open discussion reflects our faith in democracy, not just as a political tool, but as a spiritual value. The sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, may seem broad, but it starts right here. When we support social justice efforts, or even when we organize a fundraiser or write postcards for advocacy, we are linking our little community with the larger hope of a better world. And our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. Nowhere is this more tangible than in church work. We see it every time a small task ripples out into a larger impact. Every time one act of care strengthens the whole. We are deeply connected, and our shared labor is proof of that. So yes, church work is sacred, not because it's always seen, not because it earns praise, but because it expresses the deepest truths of our faith. It honors our principles, not just in word, but in action. I considered naming all of the pianists, bookkeepers, childcare workers, lay chaplains, board members, committee chairs, ministers, and one administrator that have worked for Capital during the past 29 years. But that might steer us away from the sense that I wanted to transmit. Also, I was told not to make this glorification of the one administrator whose name slips my mind. We don't have sacraments in the traditional sense, but this work is sacramental. It is a visible sign of invisible grace. It is love made tangible. So today I celebrate you, all of you, every one of you who has shown up to lead, to serve, to support, from cleaning out closets to comforting a child, from crafting policies to crafting flower arrangements. Oh, I did that on purpose. From sending a caring card to balancing a budget, all of it matters. All of it is sacred. Thank you for living your faith, not just on Sunday mornings, but in the quiet, often unnoticed moments that keep this beloved community going. Let us walk forward together in gratitude, in service, and in the spirit of our shared principles. I wanted to tell you three things: a little bit about the history of Capital, a little bit about me and church work, and finally a celebration of all of us. Oh, and there's the tone that I should stop. Let's go forward, and we're going to meditate for a few minutes on that. Amen. Let's take, to let us some meditation music. Take a couple minutes with piano and think about our church work.